I'm Eleanor Dallaway, editor of Infosecurity Magazine, and I'm joined today by Geoff Harris from ISSA, John Colley representing ISC2, and Sarb Sembhi from ISACA, and this is our Industry Associations panel. So I'd like to start by asking each of you in turn to just tell me a little bit about an update of your organisations, membership numbers perhaps, and any new objectives you've got for 2013 and the direction you're moving in. So Geoff, perhaps we can start with you.
Sure, indeed. So ISSA, it's the Information Systems Security Association, has some 10,000 members around the world, has chapters in over 150 different areas or regions. Here in the UK, we have the second largest chapter in the world with 400 or so active members. So in terms of ISSA and what it's doing and where it's going, well, it's been in existence nearly 30 years. In fact, next year we will be celebrating its 30th anniversary globally. And in fact, this year we're celebrating its 10th anniversary in the UK. So if you think where information security was 30 years ago, it was very much in its infancy. As time has progressed, obviously it's become more specialist, and I think the fact that we're seeing lots of other organizations springing up with very focused areas of interest as the industry's matured, part of the challenge, I guess, for an association like ourselves that has pretty much covered the whole of the gamut of subjects is how we focus and specialize to meet the needs of our particular members. So that's pretty much where ISSA is at the moment.
Thank you very much. John, could you do the same for ISC2, please?
Yes, certainly. ISC2, again, has been in existence over 20 years, so it's not quite as old as the ISSA, but it's still quite an old organisation from that point of view. Globally, we're around about the 90,000 mark in terms of members. The area I look after, which is Europe, Middle East and Africa, about over 14,000 now in 2013. Give you some perspective of that, in the UK there's just under 4,500 members. One of the things we started just over a year ago, at the beginning of 2012, was allowing our members to set up chapters, rather like the ISSA. In that 12-month period, we've set up almost 80 chapters, we haven't set them up, our members have set them up, because although there are ISC2 chapters, they're actually wholly driven by the membership rather than by our organisation. So we endorse them, but they're autonomous bodies in their own right. And we've got another 60 odd in the pipeline. So this time next year we'll have probably over 150 chapters. And we're going to be using the chapter organisation in order to understand what it is, the issues that our members have, and help them to address those issues, and also as a very good communication mechanism both ways. The other thing that we've done just recently, I think we announced it yesterday, and that is we're working with the Cloud Security Alliance, looking at, as Geoff mentioned, it's become a much more specialist world, and it looks as though there's a need now for a certification in the area of cloud security. We're the certification experts. The Cloud Security Alliance are the subject matter experts in that, and that's the sort of model we like to work with, is where we get the subject matter experts to understand what the domain is all about, and we make sure that the examination and the requirements are set. So that's very much what we're doing at the moment.
Some good stuff. Sarb, what's happening at ISACA?
ISACA has been going on since 1968 when it was set up, so it's about 45 years-ish. We've recently got to a point where we've signed our 100,000th member,
Wow.
so not so long ago. In the UK, in the 5 chapters there's about 4,500 members, and London chapter is still the largest chapter across the UK, and it's the largest in Europe as well, with about 2,500 members. What ISACA International has been working on has been actually solidifying some of the certifications that it's had, but also trying to make it easier for people to take the certification exam. So there's another series of exams that they can take to make it easier for them. Also trying to make sure that professionals who are using the products like COBIT are able to apply COBIT in all the various areas that they need to be able to apply it to. So, for example, in December last year, there was the cybersecurity for information security in COBIT, and that looked at auditing for cybersecurity from a cybersecurity perspective. There's been one looking at big data. So there's been a variety of these looking at how to audit things more effectively and looking at how effective some of the controls are. So it's been a challenge, and they're looking at some of the newer technologies and how you can use COBIT for very, very effectively in those new areas of technology.
So we've been talking a lot at the show this week about a industry skills gap, and I've heard a lot of people saying that they're looking to hire and they just can't find the right professionals with the right skills. Is this something that we're overhyping, or is a lack of properly qualified skilled professionals something we're really seeing in the InfoSec industry? I'd like each of your opinions on that, please.
Sure. Well, thank you, Eleanor. In fact, on Tuesday of this week, we published a report with my Alderbridge hat on, which is the recruitment business that I have in conjunction with eSkills UK, where we'd analysed some about 2,000 individuals as a sample of people to see how they had entered the profession, what sort of qualifications and experience they'd gained, and how they had moved through the industry into 28 specialist cybersecurity particular jobs. And it's very interesting to see how, as the industry has matured, that the entrance criteria for the current breed of information security specialists, no longer can they have a general degree in IT, but over the last 10 years, that window for entering the profession with a general IT background has diminished. Now employers are seeking specialists that have been certified in a particular certification, such as those that my colleagues here and their associations have. They're looking for specific experience in dedicated professionals. Probably at the more senior end of the profession, i.e. information security managers and even the chief information security officers, the opportunity for, dare I say, more generalists actually is wider. In that at that level, there's more of a requirement for people to have some of the soft skills, as they're called, some of the communication skills, the ability to interface at board and business level, who can talk more of perhaps a business language than some of the more technically focused geek speak of information security.
Yes, like Geoff, we launched our global information security workforce study, which we do every 2 years. This is a survey of this year it was over 12,000 respondents actually responded to it. And the evidence from that is very much that people are finding it very difficult to recruit suitably qualified people. The people that are already in the profession are finding they're working longer and harder hours. As a result of that, salaries are going up. We also look at the age demographics, and we're finding the profession is gradually getting older, so the number of people under 29, for example, is getting smaller and smaller, which is a bad thing. It means not enough people are coming into the profession. And the survey, which was conducted on our behalf by Frost & Sullivan, also predicts the compound annual growth rate over 10% year on year in terms of the number of people required to meet that demand. So clearly, yes, there is a skills gap. The big issue or the big question is what can be done about it?
Yeah, I think there's a number of challenges here because going way back, what you had to know to be a security consultant or a security professional manager was quite limited. You could identify it and you could put a list out on a piece of paper. As time has gone on and the range of products to help us manage security in an organisation has grown, some of the things that are technical have grown as well. So it's strange in that if you look around this exhibition hall here today, there's lots and lots of technologies for a whole range of technologies that enterprises use. And in some respects, yes, it's true, we don't need to know all of them. But on the other respect, it's like people, if you apply for jobs, people expect you to know more than just that skill set that's applicable for the job. You need a whole bunch of technical skills, as well as business skills, as well as strategic skills. You need quite a lot now, a lot more than in some respects you would have been required for a similar job 5-10 years ago. So there is a lot more that I think that you're required to have, and that is quite difficult. And finding people who've got the right skill set, the right combination, is very, very hard. And a lot of people we're speaking to are saying, yeah, it's strange, but all those technical skills are quite important. You could do without them in many respects. However, although you could do without them, they're still being asked for. And people are asking for the wide breadth of skills, which perhaps you don't need. And we're finding that really what's important is being able to talk about risk in an adult way to the business side, and actually be able to communicate those risks to the IT people and how they're going to be translated into the right sort of controls and so on. And that's sometimes quite difficult to find, people who can understand and talk to both lots of professionals in the business.
So John, you asked my next question yourself. What can be done about it? I mean, we're, like you say, we haven't got enough young talent coming into the industry. We should have. It's an exciting industry. It's well paid. As you said, salaries are going up. What can we be doing to attract young talent? And should associations like yours, what should they be doing in order to help this crisis?
Sure. So from an ISSA perspective, we have a student entry criteria where we're encouraging students to enter the profession. We're assisting in many of the new programs. The Cybersecurity Challenge has been very successful in terms of creating a mechanism whereby reaching out to the youngsters in particular. And the report that I referred to earlier has identified, if you want to become a penetration tester or a forensics investigator, these are the type of qualifications, and sometimes you might need a degree for some of these roles, sometimes you might not. So that there's still lots of ways of getting into these specialist roles. I mean, fundamentally, it's a fantastic area to be involved in, as you know, the vibe at this exhibition has shown. It's proved to be relatively recession-proof as an industry, and so I think it should be very appealing to youngsters entering the profession. And certainly as an association, we're doing everything we can to encourage new entrants into it.
Okay, from our point of view, I think I'd break the problem down into two areas. The first is we need to promote information security as a career option to younger people. At the moment, if you go to a careers fair or something like that, people aren't actually considering information security as a career option. So the things that came out of our survey about job security, salary levels and all the rest of it need to be promoted so that people understand that it is a good profession to get into. The second part of the problem is, and it's the old catch-22, that people want to only recruit people with experience. So how do you get experience? Well, you need a job. So you don't get a job without experience, and you can't get the experience without a job. So we've got to break that vicious circle. Like the ISSA, we've been working with Cybersecurity Challenge to address the first of those problems. And one of the things that occurred to us is that if we look at most of the UK university courses in computer science, there's very little, if any, security taught there. So even computer science graduates who are coming out aren't suitable raw material to actually start in an information security career. So we're talking to universities about how they can actually build that back into their courses. And they are beginning to listen, because with the issue of tuition fees in the UK, students are tending to only take courses where they're going to actually get a job at the end of it. So we're working in that there. We've also, at a board level, we've set up an initiative called Next Gen, meaning next generation of security people. We're supporting an initiative in the UK, which is again called NetSec, which is a LinkedIn group based in London, actually, although it's all over the UK. And part of our scholarship program, we also award scholarships for people that are doing stuff in the information security field.
I agree with what John and Geoff have said so far in terms of what we could be doing. The difficulty, I think, sometimes is that with our organisation, most of the work that goes on right now is with people who are have already made a decision to get into security. So most of the work I know that ISACA do is with those people who've already made a decision. They're doing their master's course or they're doing something. And that's where we get first contact. What we are not doing at the moment as an organisation is reaching out to people at the early stages. And I think what you've said, getting out to them early enough when they're in their teens to encourage people to consider this as a viable option for the future is very, very important. And I think it is a great profession. It is very exciting. It is very interesting. And it is well paid, it is inflation proof and all those things, and I think getting that message out to people is very important. At the moment we just haven't done enough, and I think it shouldn't just be up to the industry organisations. It needs a much more concerted action with e-skills and with the government, should I say, get participating. And it's not just the straight security stuff, it's in things like secure coding, and I know you have a certification for secure coding. There's things like that which do touch security and are a big part of security, but somehow some things like secure coding often gets forgotten about. So it's whichever end of IT you're coming from, it is possible to get into security and that it is a viable option. That's very important.
So I'm writing a feature at the moment about women in the information security industry, and I think just looking around exhibitions like Infosecurity Europe, it's still very apparent that it's a hugely male-dominated industry. Are your membership statistics showing an increase in women coming into the industry? And if not, what can we do to attract women into this industry? We have some fantastically talented female InfoSec practitioners, but how can we get more?
Sure. We see from our research that currently there's about 10% of women in information security. Our research broke down between non-commercial roles, i.e. very technical, and there's specialist roles, and also looked at commercial roles. And there'll be no surprise that in the commercial side there are a lot more women involved, which is great. Are the numbers increasing or decreasing? You know, I think they're pretty static. Well, what can be done? That's a tricky subject because, I mean, fundamentally, you know, women choose their career paths, and yes, like all areas of IT, it is a male-dominated profession. I think because there's probably more areas of business interaction relating to security, actually the numbers in particular for information security are higher than general IT. From an ISSA perspective, one of the things that we are doing and have recently created is a special interest group for women in information security. So just helping to ensure that people don't feel isolated and in that respect, and encourage them in what they're doing.
Yes, I think the figures are around about 10 or 11%, in fact, in terms of people, women in security. And I think it's, to be quite honest, it's got worse. I can remember 10, 15 years ago when I'd go to conferences, particularly in America, there'd be roughly 20% of women there. And recently when I've been to conferences, it's been down at about the 10% level. So I think it's got worse. So we've got to reverse that. What are we doing? Well, we've actually got a board member, a female, who's absolutely passionate about this. So she is championing from at a board level, and we set up, I think, a program called Women in Security for our members, and there is a Women in Security group for the London chapter, which is quite active. They've had 3 or 4 meetings already, and they've met with other organisations like ACES as well, who are also trying to encourage women into the physical security area as well. But I agree with Geoff. It is down to choice and also options. And I think even if you look at the IT industry, and I think IT was one of the first industries where women could really, really compete on a level playing field with men, because it's like information security. It's a very, what I call an intellectual career. it's all about what you know and how you apply yourself and all the rest of it. There's no physical aspects to it that could provide a barrier, and yet the number of women in IT is also declining. So we've got to do something to actually redress that. So I think by again showing it's a good career option and encouraging people, and when they do come in, to have networking groups so they can share information and get other people in there is one way of doing that. But again, it's one of these big issues that I'm not quite sure how we solve it.
I can't tell you what the figures are like for ISACA. I really have no idea, but I wouldn't be surprised if they're anything different from what you guys have said so far. I think in terms of what could be done, if we look at this event itself and the speakers that this event attracts in terms of the keynote speakers and so on, this event attracts some really good cream of cream speakers, and many of them are women. And so this event is a good example for women to see, where you can go along, you can find speakers who you can aspire to be be like in the future. So I think this event sets the right tone for people coming into the industry as to what you can achieve. In terms of ISACA and setting an example, our current president of the London chapter, who's outgoing, she's been president for 2 years. Sue Milton, she's been president for 2 years, as I said. President of the international organisation, ISACA, a few years ago was from the London chapter, a lady called Lynn Norton. Again, I think it's very important that we highlight and that people do see some good role models, and I think that's very, very important. And that's what we can do going forward. And as I said, this event is great for doing that.
So finally, Geoff, you did touch on the fact that hiring managers are starting to look for industry certifications in potential employees. My question is, how important are industry certifications when hiring managers are looking for new staff, and how does that weigh up against practical experience in the industry and perhaps educational qualifications?
Yes, generally I would say that certifications are extremely important. From our research, we found that 54% of the 2,000 or so people that we looked at, they had all got CISSP, which is the ISE² certification, which is by far the highest number. Employers generally, yes, they expect to see not just that certification, but within the specialist area that they're moving into, those particular dedicated certifications. The UK government, in the context of CSG, have particularly taken a recent lead on this for the class community of consultants, which is the CSG listed advisor scheme. They've recently produced what's known as the CCP, the CSG Certified Professional, whereby they've recognized the need for specialism currently in 6 different domains, and that's expanding to enhance that level of specialism for the work that they're providing to HMG. So I think it's going to continue. There's more mileage out there for certification bodies, and whilst there are organisations that will take people in at graduate sort of grassroots level and train them up their own way, we tend to find that they tend to be very focused areas, particularly in the areas of penetration testing and some of the more specialist career choices.
Yeah, obviously very important, but I would say that, wouldn't I? But I think it's got to the stage now where if you're a recruiting manager, you will expect someone who's applying to have some sort of certification. And the reason for that is it's not just a question of, oh, they've got a certification. It's that they've actually gone to the trouble of getting that certification. And certainly, the ISACA ones and ours are actually pretty tough to get. If it's a CISA or a CISSP, it's not just a question of sitting an exam. You actually have to work quite hard to do that. And the other thing that a good certification also implies is that you've made a commitment to carry on your education beyond just passing examination. And again, that's what we have in common with ISACA and ISE². However, I think it's a baseline which actually says you've actually. Sorry, the other thing I should have said about certifications, particularly ours, is there is an experience requirement as well, and that has to be underwritten by another one of our members. So you can't just say, "Oh, I've done 5 years' experience." Someone actually has to accredit that. So I think it's almost a question of you're not going to get an interview unless you've got a cert. I'm being very general here. But once you do get the interview, you can almost forget about the certification, because it's all the other qualities that the interviewing manager is looking for. Interpersonal skills, whether they'll fit into the team, whether they're the sort of person that will fit into your organisation, how much research they've done on your organisation, and so on and so forth. It's almost a sort of, it's a gotcha that if you haven't got one, you're not going to get the interview. But once you've got the interview, you can almost forget about it, because they're assuming that you know a certain amount, but it's a lot of the other factors that are going to affect that.
The problem with being last every time is that everyone said everything nearly. So I do agree with both of you, but and especially yourself, what you've just said, John. It is the starting point. It will get you the interview quite often, and after that you're on your own in terms of the experience and whether you've got the right experience for the job, what they're looking for, and fitting into the team, what you're expected to do, and so on. So that is very important. The first thing is, what have you got? What have you done to prove yourself that you've achieved that level that we need as the entry point? And the great thing about these certifications is that they don't just cover 1 or 2, 3 areas. They look at the interconnection between all the different skill sets that you need for security, and that's very, very important. It ties things together. And I know certainly when I took my ISSP, there were various areas of security I hadn't had much to do with, and having to take them and understand the certification, it really connected dots for me that hadn't needed to be connected. And that's very, very important. So when employers are looking at it, if they understand the certification, they'll know what dots have been connected. And that's very important, I think.
Some really interesting points there. So Geoff, John, Sarb, thank you for your time today. Thank you.
Thank you.